from one cultural category is speaking with another cultural category, person with another cultural category will face certain difficulties. But if two persons from one particular class in a classroom, if I'm taking classroom as an example, if two students are talking with each other, they will be able to understand their own languages, and if they belong to one particular language community, as for example Telugu is the language, and if both the students of a class are from that same language community, then it would be easy for them. But in communication, we had many things that can break the chain of the communication system, right? Which are known as the barriers. And it happens in terms of cultural differences, in terms of behaviors, habits, language, expressions, understanding, all these things. And those things are the part of our culture. And there is the chance of a misreading of a message because of certain cultural differences. Now, to avoid such things, there is a concept called redundancy. This is actually a term that comes from computer science or engineering lessons, which actually means repetition of a particular thing in different form. Redundancy means repeating something in different ways. So when we are trying to communicate with a person who may or may not belong to the same category in which I belong, I will try to provide, if I'm starting the communication, I will try to provide certain clues, or I will try to provide some extra words or extra expressions so that one particular idea or expression could not become the barrier for the listener to understand or grab it. Right. So this is very much important in terms of a communication that is taking place between two persons who are not culturally common to each other. Yes.
What is the page number?
Page number 99. Okay. Page number 99, it's the beginning of this unit. Okay. See, it would not be possible to finish almost like 5 to 6 chapters are there, 6 units are there maybe. It won't be possible to finish it within 1 hour. So what we will do is that we will try to focus on the questions, possible questions that may arise, that has already been given in the end of the chapters, each of the units. You will find that. Okay. So we'll talk about certain things, those which are actually important from in terms of our exam point of view. Okay. If they will schedule some other classes later on, I will also take that in detail. For now, for today only, we will try to focus on certain important things so that we can bind it up. Okay. Now, as we establish a relationship between culture and language, or language and culture and language yesterday, so in terms of that, communication is also important because communication can only take place in a society or in a group of people who are continuously exchanging their ideas, their thoughts, their day-to-day emotions, affections, all these things. So where is this actually happening? What are they doing? They are exchanging their ideas, staying in a community or a society, which is a part of a culture. So both are dependent to each other. We cannot have a culture without communication, and communication cannot take place without a culture or without a society, isn't that? So the relationship between culture and communication is at most important. Now, in terms of communication, I talked about two types of communication, like human communication and animal communication. And communication, in terms of communication, I said you that okay, communication can be divided into two ways. One is verbal, another one is non-verbal. We talked about them as verbal communication, where we use words in terms of oral form and written form. And non-verbal communication, we talked about the body languages, facial expressions, postures, gestures, all these things. Now, these non-verbal communications are also the form of one culture that can change the mode of receiving and sending the messages from one person to another. Isn't that? So there
Yes,
are
sir.
three aspects or three modes of communication that affects the cultural communication tremendously. One is kinesics, another one is proxemics, and body adornment. Three things are there. Now, what is the meaning of kinesics? Kinesics is nothing but the science of general or gestural communications. Okay, these are the facial expressions, physical movements, gestures, handshakes, body postures. All these things actually part of kinesics. Kinesics is a technical term in which we have all these aspects. Okay. Now, how these particular things like physical expressions, physical movements, postures, gestures, handshaking, okay, all these affect our cultural communications. Communication is being affected by all these kinesics. As for example, let me tell you one example. Like we have one particular tradition. Tradition means again that's the part of our culture that whenever we will meet a stranger, either we will offer him a salam or namaskar, or we will simply, put our hands together to pranam them. Right? This is our culture. This is our tradition. So what we are using is our facial expressions. We are using our hands, our body movements to express one thing. But see, this belongs to one particular culture, that is Indian culture. Now, when you are changing the cultural territory and you are going to USA, their way of greetings, their way of meeting a person will be different. They will simply do a handshake with the person who is a stranger, and then they will simply introduce them. In certain cases, if you will go to other countries, they will have other way of expressing their gratitude, their love, their affection, which will not be similar to the country we are belonging. So this also bring a change, kind of
Dear
difference.
parents, this is to inform that as Asma Siddiqa, ID number 7807045, IIT JE,
Mm-hmm.
7th Olympiad,
Yes.
16 out of 50, 9 out of 50, 35 out of 50, 60 out of 150. Branch rank 25. State rank 141. लड्डू तू कहीं करे पास भी हुई नहीं उन्हें
Madam.
Hussein sir, mute everyone.
Please, can you
Mute
please mute?
yourself.
Okay. So we were talking about kinesics, which are the facial expressions, physical movements. So this also brings a change, or you can also make a difference between our societal, cultural, communications. In terms of meeting with persons, greeting somebody, or showing our affections, love, hatred, all these things, right? Similarly, we also have proxemics. Proxemics is actually a term that stands for the space or the use of space, cultural space that we have. Now, this is also a term that actually shows a kind of differences in all the cultures. Within India, we are multicultural because of our languages. We have different kind of languages in India. Our country is not a monolingual country. It's a multilingual country. So if it is a multilingual country, it is supposed to have more than one cultures, right? So proxemic is actually the study of cultural use of space, and it tells us in what ways communities organize space around themselves and others depending on the situation. And the definition of this space or this proxemics of time will be differed from one culture to another. As for example, an example has been given over here is that like suppose we are talking about a particular queue in India. Suppose you are in a queue, you have to take something standing in a line in India. You can imagine that, okay, people, even if there are 100 people or 200 people to collect a particular thing from a particular office, they will not follow a particular pattern, a particular system, a particular time or space. But if it would happen in a very, developed country, like, one of the ruling countries like England or America, even if there are two persons or one person's, he or she is going to stand on a queue or in a particular space, so that when time will, come, he can or she can collect that particular ticket or token or whatever it is from that particular counter or that office on time, on a particular, uh, way, using a particular way. So these are the things which we don't have, or it can vary from one particular country to another country, right? Body adornment is also another thing. Like body adornment means the body languages, also the conventions of wearing clothes based on different, rituals, based on different, situations, based on different times, festivals and all these things. That also shows a kind of difference, especially if you will, look into uh, the dress habits of India, of each of the states that we have in India. You will find that, okay, dhoti and Punjabi is common for Bengali people. A turban is also a common for the Punjabi peoples from Punjab, right? Wearing some other, sari is also a common thing. Sometimes we use
Yes.
topi as well, right? So we have different dresses as well, coats and kurtas and all these things we use in different situation, different locations, based on different, rituals as well, different times. So these also makes a changes. Suppose, if you are an Indian and you are staying in a abroad, staying abroad for a long time. So what you will do is that, suppose there is a ritual festival is going on in India and you are in USA. So what you are going to do is that you will definitely celebrate that ritual, even though the people in India might not celebrating that one. You will wear the cultural dresses, you will do all the puja and, all other things, artists or all these things, to show that, okay, you belong to the culture of Indian people or the Indian continent. So this actually makes some kind of changes to understand the culture and its dependence on communications and the belongingness. And this is how we have a concept called multiculturalism, globalization, hybridity. All these things are actually coming up because of all such kind of, aspects of our life. Okay. Now we also have certain differences over here. It has been given in page number 102, like high context culture and low context culture. We also have some monochronic and polychronic time. Okay, so I think it will be easy for you to understand if you will go to page number, yeah, page number 107. There are certain questions. Check your progress. Model answers are there. So if you will go there
Deepti garu,
in page
mute
number,
yourself. Deepti garu, mute yourself.
the questions that has been written over here, and also the tentative answers that has been given, these are the only important things from this chapter. So if you only read this one, this is enough to complete the entire syllabus. Okay. Now, what is a high context culture? If you will see that, what is a high context? Cultures that are collectivist, value long lasting relationship, communication is context sensible. So a high context culture has a very a collective system which has a long lasting value, and they don't want to bring changes so soon. Okay, they want to follow their tradition for a long period of time, like the cultures of China, Japan, all these people. They don't even want to try to copy others, like the like we people, we are copying not only since last 10 years, since last 1, 2 or 300 years, we are copying the foreigners, like the westerners, Britishers or the Americans. These people, like the Chinese people or the Japanese people or Korean people, they want to develop their own culture, and then they do not want to change their own culture. Whenever they are doing a particular thing, they want to do it in a group. They have certain criteria, like, okay, showing their respect. Can you please mute somebody?
Yes, mute yourselves, Deepti garu.
Okay, anyway.
Can you mute?
Okay, so in high context culture, it talks about a community. They always works things and does celebrate all these things in a collective form. Okay, their values are long lasting, their relationships are long lasting. But when we are talking about the low context culture, in such type of cultures, it's actually individualistic. We do not bother about a particular group, we do not bother about a family, we do not bother about a custom. We are very individualistic in a low context culture, especially in terms of India, especially. Okay, Indian culture or Bangladeshi culture, all the all Southeast countries, South Asian countries are dealing with this one, that is low context culture. According to a particular author, right, he has divided such countries, or he has divided such cultures as high context culture and low context culture. We also have some monochronic culture and polychronic culture. Now, what is a monochronic culture? Both these cultures are actually based on time. Culture where time is seen as linear, punctuality is very important, interruptions are not acceptable, and people do not do one thing at a time. Now, in a monochronic culture and polychronic culture, it's all about time. In monochronic culture, people believe that time is linear and there should be punctuality, and we have to do a particular work on time, because this time once gone never will be back. But in polychronic culture, people believe that we can do multiple activities at a time, because time is cyclical and it can come again and again. So we can do it at whatever time we can do. So these are some of the little concepts that you can do, and it has been mentioned over here elaborately. You can go through it as well. Like polychronic and monochronic cultures contrast with each other. People with polychronic cultures see time as cyclical, For them, time can be easily scheduled. Everything has its own time. What is important is that the thing should get done. People's need may interfere with a set of time. History is important. Things are rooted in the past and things are very slow to change. Time is a process, it belongs to nature. So that's what the polygonic people of the culture believe. On the other hand, people with monochronic culture see time in a linear way. For them, things can be scheduled and done at a particular time. Persons, personal things are not allowed to interfere in the schedule. They are not rooted in the history and change is first or faster. One can make changes and see the immediate result. Time is a commodity. It can be saved and wasted. One's time is one's own. You got it? Monochronic believes that the time is created or reserved by oneself. So he or she can use it as he or she want to use it. They can waste it. They can also use it for some valuable works. But in polychronic, they are bound to do it because it's a cyclical, okay, on time. They can't interfere it. These are some of the concept is there in this particular chapter. Then we are going to deal with society in a broader way and also language in a and its variations in the next block, that is block number 4. It is going to talk about dialect. It is going to talk about sociolect, style, register, idiolect, and code switching. These are some of the concepts related to language as well as its variations based on a particular structure. Structures maybe it's a particular country, a particular region where a particular language is being spoken. Okay. So again, we will go to the end of a chapter to understand each of them because it's not easy for us to complete it in a detailed discussion. So we'll try to focus on the questions and the tentative answers that has been given. If you will read that one, even that is also fine. Now the entire book is based on Introduction to English Language, right? That is the title of this book. So in each of the chapter is talking about language in one particular aspect. In the last chapter, we were talking about language with respect to communication. In this particular unit, we are going to talk about language with respect to its variation, regional variation, structural variation, and all other variations. Maybe based on punctuations, based on pronunciations, based on its users, and based on time, place, history, all these things. Now, the first question that has been put over here is that what is meant by standardization of a language? How can we say that, okay, the language that we are using is a standard and the language you are using is not a standard one? How will you differentiate between one language to the other? Can anybody tell me the language that you are speaking is a standard one or not? If it is a standard, how are you differentiating it from the language others are using, or the people who are using it? It's not a standard language. What are the criteria?
Pronunciation.
Pronunciation is one of the aspect. That's very true.
For formation of sentences.
Formation of sentences. That's also true. Yes. It's not only about the linguistic point of view that differentiate a language to become a standard one. It's also the social and political aspects which impact a lot. You can also say more than the linguistic point of view, more than the linguistic aspects. Social and political aspects are more heavier or the heavier than the linguistic aspects to call a particular language a standard one. It has certain processes that has been given in your book. The first process is selection. The process of standardization consists four stages. The first one is selection, selecting a particular language based on linguistic aspects, social aspects, and political aspects. A leader who is leading a country, he will never want to declare a language that he is not belonging to become a standard one. When the process is going on to call a particular language as a standard and some other language as not a standard one, if a leader is there, if he is belonging to a particular language, it's make sure that okay, there is a high chance to call that particular language as the standard one. As for example, our Prime Minister is Narendra Modi. He speaks Hindi and he belongs to the upper caste that is called Brahminism, right? Now, the language that has been spoken by the upper caste among Hindi speakers will be called as the standard form in that particular language, that is Hindi. There is a possibility to call or identify or select a language in this way. This is one point of view. The other point of view is the linguistic aspect, like the pronunciation, as you mentioned, that pronunciation or the accent in which you are uttering your sentences or using it. As for example, if you are familiar with music, then we have various industries of music, right? And the vulgarist industry of music is the Bhojpuri one. If somebody is here from Bihar or the South or North UP, you might have been offended, but yes, Bhojpuri music industry is the vulgarist one. Okay, according to many surveys. Now, when you are choosing a language to become a standard one, you will also think about the colloquial usage. That means the day-to-day usage of that language, the vulnerability of that language, the aspects of vernacular, that is the feeling of Swadeshi, that's your own, that's also come there. So taking all these aspects, accent, colloquial usage, vernacular feeling, and your pronunciation will also can make a change into the selection of a particular language to call it as a standard one. And the next one is acceptance, right? We have to accept it. Now, how will you say that, okay, a particular thing is a new thing or a scientific invention? We cannot say that, okay, this is a discovery or this is an invention until and unless that discovery is being accepted by a large number of population, right? If 2 plus 2 is 4, and you have invented this particular formula, and only very few from your family, from your village or town is accepting that, okay, yes, 2 plus 2 is 4, but others are not accepting, then you can't say that, okay, this is an invention or a discovery. So it should be accepted by a large number of population. So acceptance is also very important. When you are declaring a particular language as a standard one, or choosing one language, it should be accepted by a large number of population of that language speakers. Now, elaboration and codification, then you will try to make certain codes, rules, all these things to make it a standard, to frame it or keep it for a long time to become a standard language, as we have especially American accent, and American English is different from British English, because British English has a standard form and which is known as the RP sounds, like the received pronunciation, based on their pronunciation, based on their phonetic transcriptions. So there are so many things, so many process to make a language as the standard one. You can also find out which particular dialect is a standard in your own language, be it Telugu, be it Tamil, Malayalam, and all other languages. Okay. So we had studied about language. Now, how will you differentiate a language from a dialect? Can anybody tell me what is a dialect?
It is a language with different variations of accent.
It is a language variation with different accents, right? Okay, that's good. In simple phrase or in a simple word or in simple way, we can say that, okay, the regional variety of a language is known as a dialect. What is it? The regional varieties of a language is known as a dialect. And when we will have a varieties of language in a particular societies, that will become a sociolect used by different societies. The varieties of regional varieties of a language is known as dialect. And when these varieties or the varieties of dialects are belonging to particular societies, that will become sociolect. Got it? Now, if somebody will ask you to differentiate one dialect with another dialect or dialect with language, how will you differentiate? The language is complete in itself. It has its own structure. It is the parent group out of which we have many other variations. And a variation is a one kind of form of that parent group, that is a particular independent language like Telugu. As we have consonant and vowels, vowels are always independent, consonants are always dependent. Similarly, we have dialects which are always dependent upon the main language or the proto language or the mother language, that is maybe Hindi, Urdu, Tamil, Telugu, English. So we have so many varieties. And these varieties also differ from each other based on the use of it in different societies. And when this occurs, this becomes a sociolect. Dialect becomes a sociolect only when it differs based on the societies. Got it? Now, what is a dialect continuum? As we know that, okay, a dialect is a regional variety of a particular language. If I recall my childhood, I can assure you that, okay, in my own local place, within 1 kilometer, there are almost like 15 to 16 varieties of that one particular language, that is Bengali. 16 to 17 varieties. You can understand each one of those variety. But the thing is that they vary from one to the other based on the usage of a particular or specific societal group. And these differences from, here has been given an example, like if there are 15 different sociolects or dialects which differ from each other from 1 to 15. So the chain and the gap in between of these 1 to 15 is known as the dialect quantina. Okay, is it clear? Important questions. See, if you will go through the tentative questions and the answers that has been given at the end of each of the units, like check your progress model answers. These model questions and model answers cover the entire chapter. After that, we have a glossary. Glossary means the terms that has been included in this particular chapter that has been also defined in a very simple way. As for example, accent in page number 125. What is an accent? A way in which a language is pronounced. So the way of pronouncing a particular language is known as accent or stress. Then what is a dialect? That has also been given over there. Isoglass, a boundary line to map the occurrence of distinct linguistic feature. Sociolect, a variety of language spoken by a particular social class, caste, ethnic group, or in a particular social situation. So small definitions or to the point definitions has also been given at the end of each of the chapter, and also some of the important questions has also been written in the each of the chapters at the end of the chapters. If you will read those questions and try to understand them, you will definitely be able to write all the answers in the questions when it will be in your exam, right? Now, similarly, in the next chapter, page number 135, there are certain model questions, examination questions. Not 135, yeah, 134. Difference between language and speech. If a question will come to your exam, that what is the difference between language and speech? How will you differentiate it? Speech is always a form of a language, but a language is complete within itself, as I mentioned, right? Yesterday I was talking about two concepts, like one is Lang and Parole, given by Ferdinand de Saussure. I was talking about Lang and Parole. I was talking about Noam Chomsky and his ideas like competence and performance. Same kind of ideas, like. So language, the mental ability or the abstract knowledge of anything or any particular language, is known as Lang or competence. Similarly, Parole was the performance of that particular rules or regulation that is there in your brain. So language is always an abstract form that is there in our brain. You can't show someone that, okay, take this one, give me your hand, and take this one from my hand and say this is language. No, this can't be possible, right? You can't show someone that, okay, this is language. But when you are using your mental faculties, your abstract knowledge about that language in terms of speaking, and somebody is recording it, or somebody is listening it and recalling it, and also somebody is writing it on pen and paper, that will become a speech. Isn't that? It has been written over here, right? Language is abstract. Language exists only in the minds of the people and it's homogeneous. Language is the domain of competence. Speech consists of a patterned verbal behavior. It is verbal, okay? There should be words. It is concrete and observable phenomena, unlike language. Speech can have many variations depending on different factors. It is in the domain of performance. That's what I mentioned, okay? Now there is a concept called what is meant by communicative competence. This is a very important term. Communicative competence is a term that has been given by Dale Hymes. It has been written over here, right? And remember two other terms like competence and performance. These two terms has been given by Noam Chomsky. Yesterday I told you. Noam Chomsky has been given these two terms, competence and performance. But communicative competence, this term has been given by Dale Hymes. So competence means the abstract knowledge about a particular language, and performance means the usage of that language, the practice of that language that is there in your brain. Now in communicative competence, Dale Hymes says that, okay, it doesn't mean that, okay, you have certain faculties, certain knowledge about language in your brain, and you can practice it each and everywhere, every places you want to use it. It's not like that. You have to follow certain patterns, certain attitudes, motives, and values regarding your language. If you have language, you can speak. That doesn't mean that, okay, you will speak whatever you want in any kind of situation, any kind of places. So communicative competence is the ability to use the right type of variety of language in a particular situation which is appropriate to its social context. You got it?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Then and the third question is like, is there a difference between linguistic community and speech community? Explain. What is the difference between linguistic community and speech community? You can read this one as well. There is a difference. Then describe the speaking acronym. So there is an acronym in the word speaking. Each of the letters are talking about different aspects according to Dale Hymes in communicative competence. So you can read that one. S is a stand for sin and setting, right? P is for participants such as speaker, hearer, etc. E is the ends or the goals of outcomes of what is being spoken. So similarly, all the letters has its own name. So you can also go through it. Questions will be based on these questions only. The form of the question will be different. Maybe the way of asking the question will be different, but questions will be based on your understanding of the chapter, understanding of these topics. Got it? You will get an idea if you will look into the questions of the previous years. So similarly, as we discussed about what is dialect, here is a question called register. Now, what is a register? What is a idiolect? What is a speech repertoire? What is a register? A register is a set of linguistic items or choice of variety of language associated with a social or occupational group. It has a specific vocabulary, grammatical choices made by speakers based on situation, context, participants, etc. The special features also include lexis, intonation, and grammar. So when you are going to attend a cultural ceremony, your way of using vocabulary will be different. When you are going to deliver a lecture in front of some dignitaries, your way of delivering a lecture would be different. You will use certain highly qualified words or languages. But when you are attending a cultural ceremony to engage the people, to make them laugh, the way of language that you will use will be 100 times different from the language that you used in a lecture. So when you are choosing a particular variety of language based on certain social and occupational situations, that is what is known as register. You got it?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So we have language, we have register, we have dialect, we have sociolect. Now we have idiolect as well. Now what is idiolect? Id is actually a term. Id is a part of our brain. According to Ferdinand, not Ferdinand actually, Sigmund Freud, our brain can be divided into three categories. One is id, ego, and superego. So id stands for a particular brain or one single entity. So idiolect is actually a combined process when a person is choosing one way of expression of one particular language, staying within a particular society is known as idiolect. Suppose you are staying in a particular village or town. That particular village or town has its own way of expression, a particular language. Maybe they are following a variety of the parent language. And within that variety, you are utilizing that variety into your own way. That is what is known as idiolect. So it is the speech system of each person within language community. The range of idiolect differs from person to person, and it depends on the number of different people each one is associated with it. Okay. No one can speak in the same language. No one can use the same way of expressions. Even if you are part of a family, if you're talking about a family, maybe in your family there are 5 or 6 members, and each one of yours way of speaking a particular regional variety or a standard form will be different from each other. At any cost, it will be different. This difference is known as idiolect. Got it?
Yes.
Now there is a small term that is speech repertoire. Repertoire means it's a stock, right? Stock of a particular thing. So speech repertoire is an individual's control of varieties of a language to use according to the linguistic context. Repertoire means is actually, what can I say, is a dictionary. It's a dictionary in which you have certain words. Each and every person has his or her own dictionary. So if I'm speaking in a particular language, I have a stock of vocabulary in my mind. And I know where to use this word and where to use that word. So when I'm choosing some particular words from my repertoire, that is what is known as speech repertoire. Because I know I keep my words in one particular stock, one repertoire, one dictionary in my brain. My brain is my repertoire of all the words, all the language, all the phrases. And in my brain, there is a faculty which has the capacity to decide that if I'm going to attend a marriage function, how will I behave there? How will I speak with people? Those who will be strangers, those who will be, relative. So I will pick up certain words from my repertoire, from my brain. So brain has multiple functions, and it has one particular function, that is capturing certain words and picking up certain words based on the situations. Okay, so speech repertoire is nothing but a stock of words that each and every person has in their brain. Okay, from where you choose certain words and you behave in one particular way, and when you are doing that one to make you different from other, that is what is known as idiolect. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So these are some of the important aspects. Suppose you have been asked a question that what is a register, then you have to simply give a definition, and you can also expect some other questions related to it. What is a register? Define it giving suitable examples. Right. When somebody will ask you to give suitable examples, you have to explain it in this way, that what is a register? What is an idiolect? Right. You will give the context or the situations that, okay, if I am in this situation, I'll try to use different languages, different words, different features. So based on this is called a idiolect or a register. Isn't that? Communicative competence is a very important term that can be asked. Okay. So you can read about that. Dale Hymes is one of the person who has talked about communicative competence. Means, as I have already told you that, okay, we have speech, we have words, we have vocabulary, we have grammar. That doesn't mean that, okay, we can use each and every words in every places. We have to become very competent to use words based on the difference of the situations. That is what actually Dale Hymes wanted to mean. Sometimes our parents advises us that, okay, if you have money, you are earning 1 lakh or 2 lakh per month, that doesn't mean that, okay, you will spend them like a vagabond, right? So you have to spend your earnings in a proper way to lead a life happily. Similarly, if you have a language, that doesn't mean that, okay, you will use it everywhere unnecessarily. It has its own purpose, it has its own place. So based on that place and functions, when you're using that language, it's called communicative competence. That means you have the sense how to communicate. That is what is the meaning of this particular two words, that is communicative competence. Competence means skill. Communicative means you have the skill of communication. You know where to communicate, in which way. That is what is communicative competence. Okay. In the next chapter, there are certain very important and very interesting aspects. Let's talk about that if you have time. Can we discuss about this?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes,
Just a minute. Go to page number 48. 148. There are certain aspects we will talk about that. If you will finish these 6 or 7 questions, you will definitely understand this entire chapter. But make sure that when a question will be asked, to elaborate it, giving examples or suitable illustrations, you have to write whatever I am telling you, or you have to go through at least once if you have any doubt, or try to make your own definitions and make your own examples as well. If you are going to write in your own words, that will be more good or more attractive for the examiner who will evaluate your papers. The first question is that what is bilingualism and multilingualism? As I already mentioned a few minutes back that India is called a multicultural country only because it has more than one language. Britain or England is monolingual country. America is monolingual country. Bangladesh is monolingual country. Pakistan is monolingual country. Right? All other countries, Nepal is also monolingual. Bhutan is also monolingual country. All other countries, almost all other countries are monolingual except India. In India, we have more than 1,656 registered dialects or varieties of languages. We have 22 or 23 official languages. So how can we expect that our country will have only one particular culture? We have more than one culture. So when a person is speaking in one particular language and he knows only one language or she knows one language, that is known as bilingualism, monolingualism. But when you are speaking in more than one language, it's called bilingualism. More than one language means 1 plus 1. Your mother tongue is there, and apart from your mother tongue, you can also speak in any other language, in any one language that is closer to your mind. So suppose I am a Bengali speaker, now I'm speaking in English. So based on these two languages, I'm a bilingual. But I also can speak in Hindi, I can speak in Urdu, I can speak in Oriya, I can speak in Jharkhandi and Assamese. So when I can speak in more than two languages, that's when I become a multilingual. Okay, so this is what I actually mean by multilingualism and bilingualism. So what are the reasons for people to become bilingual and multilingual? You can write whatever you feel good to write in these questions. Okay, there is nothing to discuss about. There are many causes. There are many causes for the sake of job, for the sake of your passion, for the sake of your study. You can move from one place to another place. For intercultural marriages, it's also happened. Okay, let's talk about two important terms like what is Pidgin and Creole. When you will understand these two things, entire chapter will be clear to you. This chapter especially. What is a Pidgin? In question number 5, you will find it, but what differentiate between Pidgin and Creole? A Pidgin is a simplified language which fulfills the communicational needs of two communities that do not have a common language. Now let me explain this one in a very interesting way. See, in 1600, the Britishers came to our country, right? They came with East India Company in 1600. They ruled our country. They found that, okay, these people are very full. They are too full that, okay, we can make them full and we can take their valuable things to our own country. So they came, they called their neighbors, their villagers, their relatives. Everybody came here and they started finding that, okay, we people are so weak. We are vulnerable. So they started ruling us, right? Now, in order to rule and in order to spread their trading system in our country, what they started to doing is that they were also trying to understand few words in terms of communication. And we people, when we were communicating with them, we were also trying to understand a language. That language was known as Pidgin, the language that we use in terms of making a bridge between a community, in terms of solving a particular problem, making a bridge between two different society, two different language. When I'm using that one, when those people were doing this one, this was known as Pidgin. I can also give you another example. Suppose I came here in Hyderabad in 2017, right? Can you please mute yourself? Okay. So I came in Hyderabad in 2017. Just for the sake of understanding, I'm giving this example. If I'm getting married, with a girl from Hyderabad whose mother tongue is Telugu or Urdu or Dakhni, these languages are very prevalent in Hyderabad. Maybe I do not know any one of them. So how will I communicate with my spouse? The first way of communication will be a bridge that I will partially speak in my own language, maybe Hindi or Bengali, and she will speak in Telugu, and we will have some fixed words like khana khaya, khana pakaya, all these words, right? Okay. So the beginning words that we try to build a communication, right? So when we are talking and we are trying to make a connection between the languages, the surface understanding is known as Pidgin. And this particular language will satiate or serve to satisfy our basic needs of communication. This will not have any kind of grammar. This will not have any kind of system. This will not have any kind of fixed structure to build. But what happens when we are getting married, or suppose two people are getting married and they will have one or two kids after 2 or 3 years, and they will also follow their parents. Their parents are still using the Pidgin language, the beginner's language, to make a bridge between the spouses. So when the kids will follow that language, that language will become their mother tongue. Those kids' mother tongue will become that Pidgin language, and they will try to find a structure, a script, and a particular form of framing sentences. Only then that language is called a Creole. Got it? I gave you the example in a very short period of time, but it takes a lot of time to develop a Pidgin to a Creole. It takes time. Okay, so certain differences has been given over here. You can read that one as well. Now, describe the process of creolization that has been written over here. The process of creolization is also called elaboration of function of the Pidgins. This is a three-way process encompassing the elaboration of vocabulary of Pidgin, creating complexity in syntax, extend the social situation in which the language is used. So this is what I simplified and told you. Okay, this is how a Pidgin become a Creole. Now there is another term, that is code switching. What is code switching? Code switching, for code switching, you have to go to the main passage. There are certain examples. It's a basic way of switching one particular way of speaking to another way, so that the other person can understand easily. Okay. Diglossia, what is the meaning of diglossia? Diglossia is a phenomenon in which a speaker uses two varieties of single language or two languages, standard and a Creole. Okay. In two distinct situations, the functions of languages or varieties are clearly marked. One is used for official, another one is for lower variety. Okay, that's diglossia. So see these words like register, idiolect, dialect, sociolect, diglossia, pidgin Creole. These words are actually very close to each other. So to make a distinct difference between all of them, you have to read them carefully. What I will suggest is that try to make small definitions of them and write it in your own paper and try to see them every day. Otherwise, you will become a hodgepodge of all these terms: diglossia, idiolect, register, dialect, sociolect, and language. Make a definitions, make definitions of all these terms and write them in one particular page and see every day to make them different from each other. At the end of page number 150, there are certain glossaries has been given, like aerolect, a variety of Creole, which is most prestigious and closer to the standard language, is called aerolect. Basilect, the less prestigious variety of Creole. Bilingualism, I know, you know, right? An ability to speak in two languages. Code switching, shifting from one language to another according to need. So when there is a need to shifting one language to another, and when you are shifting based on the need, suppose you are speaking with a person who doesn't know Telugu, and you are a Telugu person. Suppose you are speaking with me, I don't know Telugu, I only know Hindi. So when you are switching your language partially to make the person, make me understand about your idea that you want to share with me, and when you are changing it with partially with Hindi, even though your Hindi is not good, even though you don't know how to speak in Hindi, or you know a partially, you are trying to speak. That's what is not code switching. Diglossia is again the use of two different varieties, a high variety of formal situation and a low variety of informal situation by a community. Mesolect is there the intermediary variety of Creole, which is between aerolect and basilect. Pidgin is a simplified hybrid language used for communication between people who do not have a common language. Okay, so these are some of the things that you have to remember. I hope things has become little clear to you. Then we have a topic and the fifth block, that is what is grammar, types of grammar and types of grammar 2. Grammar is nothing but a structure, accepted norm that we follow to speak a particular language, right? It has many types, like we have universal grammar, we have generative grammar, we have internalized grammar. Okay, these are some of the terms you can find in page number 158. So you just have to go through them. There is nothing to understand because you have to read them and understand what is this type of grammar. When you are going to talk about these chapters, type of grammars, you will find traditional grammar, you will find pedagogical grammar, you will also find prescriptive grammar and descriptive grammar. And when you are going to talk about prescriptive grammar, descriptive grammar, traditional and pedagogical, each of the types has been given by a particular man or a noted person. So you have to remember the noted person's name and what he had said about that particular type of grammar. Prescriptive grammar and descriptive grammar, they are very self-declarative, because prescriptive means when you are giving an n number of rules to memorize, to understand a particular language. And when rules are important, then its usage, it's called prescriptive. Descriptive means when you are using examples, or when you are using conversations, you are using speeches to understand a particular language without memorizing the rules. That is what is known as descriptive grammar. Okay. We have pedagogical grammar. Pedagogical grammar means when you are using a particular grammar to make the students, those who belongs to a particular age. Pedagogy means kids, right? The language of kids. When you are teaching some kids or in a kindergarten school, when you're teaching some kids and you're using a particular form of grammar, your way of teaching will be different. Then your way of teaching will be different when you are teaching students of college or higher secondary school or degree colleges or universities. That will be completely different based on their ages. But when you are teaching in a kindergarten school, your way of teaching them will be different. So you will either follow a prescriptive format or you will follow a descriptive format. But to follow a descriptive format, you have to understand that okay, the listeners have at least some basic ideas about the topic that you are teaching. But when you are teaching some kids who are unaware about the rules, you have to give them certain rules in a very energetic and in a very innovative way so that they become very happy while they are learning. So their learning should be delightful and entertaining, as well as it should have a purpose of instructing. Traditional grammar is all about prescriptive rules. Okay, so these are some of the things that is there. You can read them: descriptivism and prescriptivism, purism. Traditional grammars means that simple rules. Then we have types 2 grammar like structural, generative, functional, communicative in page number 169. And this grammar, actually this type of grammar has been given by either by Noam Chomsky. Like generative grammar, he is known as the father of generative grammar, Noam Chomsky. Then we have functional grammar. You might have heard of Mac Halliday. So Halliday is the father of functional grammar. So you will just have to go through all these types, and what they have said, you just have to remember that. And also their name, that who has given a structural grammar, who has given functional grammar, who has given communicative grammar. You have to read them and just understand. Nothing is there like this. Okay. But if there will be any other classes, then we will definitely discuss about them in detail. Okay.
Sure, sir.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so have a good time. If you have any doubt, you can reach me in WhatsApp. In the group, you can ask me. Okay, I'll see the messages, definitely. Otherwise, prepare for the subject. Read at least, because each of the unit will take at least 1 hour to complete. Even if you will read, simply if you will read, you'll understand them. It's very declarative, expressive. The book is very expressive. Okay, so if once you will read, you will understand it. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everybody. Somebody is asking to join into the group. I don't think whether I'm part of the group or not. Sir, please add me in WhatsApp group.
Vaishnavi, send me a message on this number. I'll add you.
Yeah, okay. Contact with him. Okay.
Thank
Thank
you,
you
sir.
to everybody. Okay. Have a good time.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Hello. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Can you give anyone important questions? Please tell 5 lakhs. Good evening, everyone. Hello. Hi, everyone. Can you please give important questions? Can anyone know important questions? Do you know everyone important questions?